The Albany Gazette newspaper, Albany, New York, published February 24th, 1800. A German man took a needle and thread, added pages, and turned a newspaper into a junk journal dating back almost 220 years. The history behind the paper. The Albany Gazette published February 24th, 1800. When I first stumbled across this half piece of newspaper in a box lot that I had purchased in a bulk ephemera purchase, I thought, well, this is neat. It's an old paper a few years after the Revolutionary War. I wonder what it holds. Well, it actually held more than I imagined. It holds a junk journal. Now, what is a junk journal? The definitions vary. Each junk journalist might have their own idea of what a junk journal is, but essentially it is a handmade book from recycled materials. So you take a newspaper and you sew pages inside, write on some of them, and you have your own junk journal. A junk journal, in this case, that is over 200 years old. So a little history about the Albany Gazette, because what would be a history behind the paper episode without history? The Albany Gazette was founded in 1771 by brothers Alexander and James Robertson. They were originally from Scotland and they came over to America in the 1760s. Being from Europe, you have the Revolutionary War. They are loyal to the crown, so they flee. Some accounts say that James, one of the founders of the newspaper, actually had to go into hiding about 13 miles from Albany. He even brought his printing material with him and continued to publish some newspapers until he just couldn't do it anymore. In 1784, the Webster brothers, Charles and George, who are noted on this paper, took over the Albany Gazette. They basically resurrected it. Charles became the leading printer and publisher in Albany, and he was very, very active in the community and in the town in all sorts of different organizations. The final home of the Albany Gazette was on Elm Tree Corner, which became a landmark in the town, and it is called Webster's Corner or the White House, as referenced on the newspaper. The Gazette merged with the Daily Advertiser in 1817 and then remained in publication until 1845. So who made this junk journal? Who took it upon themselves to cut half a paper, sew in some pages? This was a man by the name of George, and he basically kept this ledger, this little junk journal notebook, as a ledger where he accounted for his purchases of nails and wine. I'm fortunate enough to have a YouTube friend in Perio Blues. She has her own YouTube channel. I will put a link in the description below. Being in Germany, she was nice enough to translate the German for me. Being that it's old German, when I looked up some of the words, I thought, this is not right. Some of the translations, the word now means spa. I'm like, wait, this guy was going to a spa in the 1800s in Albany, New York. Gotta check that. But it's so interesting. I tried to find some information about George. Common first name, common last name wasn't happening with my limited time that I had, but feel free to do your own investigation. I just wanted to bring this to light because junk journaling is very popular today. If you look on YouTube, there are lots and lots of channels that go over how to make a junk journal, how to turn an old book or an old newspaper into a junk journal. It's amazing what people can do with ephemera, and that's one of the reasons why I love ephemera, that even when it's tattered, torn, and worn, you still can repurpose it and give it new life. It also inspired me to hopefully make my own junk journal at some point. Since I do have a lot of paper, I do like to be creative and inventive and do crafting. So hopefully soon you will see me take a dive into the junk journaling world, inspired by the Albany Gazette and George's little information inside. So I'm going to follow up with some close-up shots of the newspaper and of George's writing with the translations of George's text. I thought that you all would enjoy that rather than just looking at me, looking at this paper and going on and on about how wonderful it is. But I hope that this shows you what can be in ephemera. Sitting in a box, it looks just like a regular old newspaper from the 1800s, of course, filled in of itself with interesting texts such as cheap grocery paint and leather store. You have, let's see what's over here. Thomas Berry and Son, they have just received an opening for sale at their store, dry goods. They also have a case of ladies' fashionable hats and groceries, all in one store. So you can take a better look at some of the ads, the text, and just the gloriousness of this newspaper from the 1800s that was turned into someone's personal junk journal. So stay tuned for those. Hope you like it. Hope you like this different kind of video, a little bit of history behind the paper, fashioned in a different way. So stay tuned for the close-ups. You don't want to miss seeing this great find from the 1800s. Newspaper into junk journal into YouTube video.